One of the problems with recruiting for investment banking is not the knowledge or skills you acquire, but the access to talk with real investment bankers to put your best foot forward. Our sponsor, WSO Academy, can provide those connections with 60 head mentors who are finance professionals at top firms like Goldman, Centerview, and JP Morgan. Imagine being able to get on the phone within 24 hours with one of the Academy's 1,300 mentors right before a critical interview. Get on the waitlist for WSO Academy today by clicking the link in the show notes or by visiting wallstreetoasis.com/academy. All right. Welcome to Investment Banking Insights. My name is Alex Mason and I am your host. And I'm so excited that you're here today because on this show, we're digging into the technical and non-technical aspects of the investment banking process. Specifically, if you're recruiting for investment banking or thinking about recruiting for investment banking, you're in the right place. We're going over all the things you need to know. And we've been talking about valuation. And today's question is a fun valuation question, I think. How would you value an apple tree? How would you value an apple tree? Now, how would you think about this, right? You've got this apple tree, you know it produces something valuable, which is apples. People eat apples. You can make apple pie, which is so delicious, especially during the holidays. But how would you value this thing, right? You've got it sitting in the yard and it's producing apples. Well, the way in general that you would think about this is, what is an asset, right? Let's get back to fundamentals. An asset is something that produces cash. And a cash flowing asset, well, let me back up really quick. I guess to differentiate, there are assets that don't generate cash, they just appreciate in value. But for the perspective of this discussion, this is an apple tree. It's going to produce a cash flowing asset, which is the apples. So no matter what it is, it could be a widget factory, it could be a natural gas pipeline, it could be an amusement park or an apple tree. We just want to know what the cash flows are, when the cash flows are coming, and we do that with a discounted cash flow analysis. Basically, we're looking at the cash flows. That's how we would value an apple tree. And that's just one way. We could look at our other major valuation methodologies, which if you've been following along, you know the other main ones are comparable companies and precedent transactions. So for example, if we were going to do a DCF, we would look at what is the present value of the cash flows of the apple tree from year one to its terminal value. Because let's say, the apple tree is going to die at some point, or it's going to be chopped down at some point. We could just say that that's the end. But between now and then, through the seasons, it's going to be producing a certain amount of apples. How many bushels of apples is it going to make? How much is each apple going to sell for? And then we subtract the costs required to maintain that apple tree and keep it healthy. Okay, we can discount the cash flows back to the present. And then boom, we have the value of the apple tree. If we were looking at something like comparable companies, well, in this case, we'd be looking at comparable apple trees, right? So what are other types of trees selling for? I mean, we might even compare the different types of trees. Like maybe there's a banana tree or some other type of fruit-bearing tree that's similar enough in terms of economic characteristics that we can compare and have a reasonable estimation on the value. Another way we would look at it is precedent transactions. So what other apple trees have recently sold, and what have they sold for in this market? If your neighbor down the street recently sold their apple tree for, I don't know, just making up a number, $50,000, then you might think to yourself, you know what? I've got a pretty good apple tree that's pretty similar to my neighbor's. I could probably sell it for $50,000 too, because it just sold it last week. Now, of course, the older the transaction or the less similar the assets, it's going to be harder to make that direct comparison, but that's another way to look at it. But fundamentally, I like the fact that you're looking at cash flows and doing a DCF, but you can also look at precedent transactions or comparable companies as well. So that's how you would value an apple tree. And remember, it doesn't really matter what kind of asset it is you're valuing. in general, and again, like, of course, there's a bajillion nuances depending on the specific asset you're looking at. But in general, an asset is an asset is an asset. You're going to be looking at cash flows. You're going to be looking at comparable assets or companies, and you're going to be looking at precedent transactions. So that's what I got for you today here on Investment Banking Insights. Next time, we're going to be talking about ratios again. We've been getting deep into these ratios, and I want to discuss a little bit of a nuance with one of them. So that's coming up next time on Investment Banking Insights. I'll see you there.